Hello everyone, my name is Air, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to build and how to use Hilda. Okay, so Hilda is in the faction of Empire, Reincarnation, and Strategic Masters. She's a tank very similar to Landius. First we'll look at her level 70 max stats. Grand Marshal is her Lancer class and Royal Knight is her Cavalry class. So Grand Marshal is tankier, more HP, more defense, while Royal Knight has more attack and magic defense. Talent, Bloody Vengeance, very strong, close to broken as a tank. So first part is negate one fatal attack, which means she can die more than once. She has one extra life. Restoring at 3, 4, 5, 6 stars at 50% HP. Okay, so first this part is, I did say she's a little bit similar to Landius. Her extra life is built into her talent, while Landius has to use his 1-cost skill. If I remember correctly, I think the skill is called Indomitable. So now you don't even need that 1-cost skill. On top of that, Indomitable only restores 20% HP after death, and this one here is 50% when you revive. Okay, let's keep going with the talent. There's a lot of parts to it. So activates once per map. If this unit has 2 or more buffs, damage taken 3, 4, 5, 6 star at 25%, and adds 5, 8, 11, 15% of attack into defense and magic defense. So this part is like the first part, damage taken reduced up to 25% is huge. And the second part of this is the same as Landius, attack into defense and magic defense. So you want to build her with as much attack as possible. When one ally in battle within 2 blocks at 3, 4, 5, 6 stars, so 5 and 6 stars is 3 blocks, then that attacking unit is prevented from scoring critical hits for this attack. This effect has a cooldown of 3 at 3 stars, 4, 5, 6 stars at 1 turn cooldown. So this talent is pretty broken, so this prevents your opponent to crit on whoever it's going to attack on. There's a 100% critical block. So, I mean, 6 stars is really important because it's only 1 turn cooldown, so if you are using her for PvP, 6 stars is strongly recommended, but if you're doing PvE only, I think 4 to 5 star would do. Her talent makes a lot of assassins kind of useless when it comes to PvP, because assassins require critical hit to deal optimal damage, but this basically shuts down the assassin's critical hit. So it makes assassin much less useful when it comes to PvP when you have to fight against her. I'll quickly go over the second part of this talent. So if this unit has 2 or more buffs, then she gets the damage taken reduced and attack goes into defense and magic defense. So this part is really easy to maintain. So her effect, the last effect here where you can critical hit block, that's 1 buff already. And her 3C also has another buff in there. So basically she always has 2 buffs. Well, there's a cooldown when it comes to the critical hit block, but if it's 6 stars, 1 turn cooldown is very easy to maintain. And of course there's faction buff, Tenyo buff, all kinds of buff that you can get from your allies. Bonding requirement. Since she's not a collab character, which means she will need friends to unlock her 4th and 5th bonds. So I'll skip the first 3. The 4th one, toughness, you need Werner to unlock her defense bond. And then you need Florentia to unlock her strength bond. So if you don't have these 2 heroes, I think the last bond is fine. You don't really need Florentia. You do though, for more attack, for more defense, but you can still use her without the 5th bond, but I think you really need the 4th bond. So this banner, when you guys summon, you need to have both. Now I'm going to go over these skills. So Ralph, physical damage, attacks a single enemy dealing 1 times damage, pushes the target back 2 blocks and renders them unable to act for 1 turn. Most Cavalry class do have this. Landius also has this. Okay, Ram. Okay, 1 cost, cooldown 2, range 1, span single, and I want to say is that when a tank has Ram, I think that's pretty broken since it's only 1 cost. So physical damage, attacks a single enemy, dealing 1.2 times damage and pushes the target back 2 blocks. Decreases mobility by 2 and disables guard. Okay, when a tank can disable guard on your opponent, I think that's really broken. because the tank usually just sits there and guard, but now she can guard and while she's guarding. When she has nothing to do, she's going to disable opponent's guard. Lance Phalanx, a very common tank skill. Passive takes physical attacks for adjacent ally units. Active guard range increased to 2, gain defense plus 20%, and after entering combat in melee range, always trigger Barb. Fixed damage after combat, last 2 turns. Halberd Breaker, okay, this skill is new. Passive, when fighting melee battles, attack plus 15% and disable enemy's weapon ability aside from HP increases before battle. When the target is an NPC, then the latter effect is instead attack and intelligence minus 25% lasts 1 turn. So this one's a little bit tricky. So what this means is, okay, PvP, you can get the disable weapon ability. When it comes to PvE, your enemy is going to get attack and intelligence minus 25% before battle. So what that means is, so before battle, so let's say if there's Ragnarok, this will not disable Ragnarok's effect, because the fixed damage happens before the battle. So which means Ragnarok happens before this passive. I know the description, the before battle and Ragnarok's before battle, it contradicts each other, but that's how it works. So any weapon that says before battle will happen before Halberd Breaker. Anyway, so however, this passive works when you're attacking or you're getting attacked, as long as is before a battle. And it says when fighting melee battle, so it doesn't matter if it's against physical damage or magic damage, as long as is melee battle, then this will proc. Next we have Swordbreaker, cost 2, cooldown 3, range 1, span single. So this is an attacking skill. Physical damage, attacks a single enemy, dealing 1.5 times damage, inflicts damage dealt minus 20%, last 2 turns. There's not many tanks that have a attacking skill that deals 1.5 times damage. Heavy Shield, cost 2, passive, when attacked with a melee attack, 25% chance to reduce damage taken by 50%. A lot of tanks do have this skill, but not every Heavy Shield is the same. For example, Lennon also has Heavy Shield, but his reduces 30% damage taken. Emric also has Heavy Shield, his is 50% just like Hilda's. Arrow Breaker, cost 1, passive, when ranged attack, attack plus 15%, damage taken minus 10%, and may counter physical range attacks from up to 3 spaces away. So a little bit similar to Landius and Grenier's Iron Helmet. Will of the Reincarnation, there's a faction buff skill, same as any faction buff, but the second part of this is single target skill damage plus 12% and counter attack damage plus 12%. In case you guys are new to this game, there's a lot of faction buff. Some faction buff only gives you the stats up, but some faction buff give you the stats up, and on top of that there's a second part of the buffs. Imperial Formation, cost 2, cooldown 2, range 2, and span line. Passive, takes all attacks for adjacent allies. Physical damage, attacks along 5 lines for 0.1 times AoE damage. Guard range increases to 2. Gain chance of being critically hit minus 20%. Last 2 turns. The attack terrain gain trap for 2 turns. Enemies on this terrain cannot receive move again or act again effects. So this one is a skill, AoE skill, same as, well, I shouldn't say same, similar to Tree of Sage Landius, 2 cost skills. So this skill will paint tiles, and whoever is on it cannot receive move again or act again. Okay, now let's take a look at her awakening skill. Scarlet Command is absolutely broken for a tank. The description of the awakening skill is a little bit long, so bear with me. So cost 3, cooldown 0, range 0, span 0. So there's no cooldown. Okay, so passive. Take all attacks for adjacent allies, immune to movement down. Okay, so what this means is you cannot use movement down skills to disable her guard. It's built into 3C, which means she doesn't really need Mass Resist or Overlord Badge to prevent guard disable. Command, allies within 2 blocks cannot be displaced. Fixed damage taken minus 35%. Okay, so cannot be displaced means you cannot move them. So whoever, okay, so Landius has it on himself. He cannot be moved. But this one here, when allies are too range close to Hilda, nobody will move. Which means if you're trying to use Olandius, Sage of Treelandius, to use 3C to move your opponents around, this will prevent that from happening. On top of that, fixed damage taken also minus 35%. Okay, active, choose one of the following effects. Command, Lance Protection. Guard range increases to 2, command range increases to 3. Okay, command range means what I just said earlier. They can't be pushed around, fixed damage minus 35%. So instead of 2 blocks, it's going to be 3 blocks. This hero's type becomes Lancer. Before being attacked in battle, for every block moved by the enemy before battle, they gain damage taken plus 10% up to 50% last 3 turns. Okay, so what that means is, for example, if I am using Leon, I move 5 blocks before attacking Hilda. So Hilda's counter damage will be plus 50%. If I move 1 block, that'll be 10%. So the more blocks you move, the more counter damage Hilda's going to do to you. Okay, now we're going to look at the second command, Cavalry Charge. Guard range increases to 2. Command range increases to 3. So this part is still the same with the Lancer Protection. This hero type becomes a Cavalry. Damage dealt against infantries plus 20% last 3 turns. So Cavalry already has a big advantage against infantries, but no, they decide to do this plus 20%. Absolutely broken. However, after using one of the above effects, cooldown of this skill is set to 3. So thank God there's a cooldown. And I think cooldown 3 is pretty fair. If it's 5, I think it's a little bit too long. Okay, so one thing you guys have to be careful, or one thing you guys have to know, is that if you're in Lancer form, if your Hilda is Lancer, she can only move 3 blocks. If she is a Cavalry class, she can only move 5 blocks. I'm talking about the initial class, okay? So let's say if she is Lancer troop, she's Lancer class, and then now you go into Cavalry Charge, that will not increase her movement. She will still move 3 range. Vice versa if her initial class is Cavalry and she changes to Lancer class. Now we're going to look at her recommended weapon. So first we're going to look at the Lancer class. Ragnarok recommended if you want to go offensive. Especially she has very high attack. You will be able to do good damage as a tank. Next we have Thrawn Guardian. This one, it makes her tankier because it gives HP. So if you probably don't need to do the attack or you're not going to go very offensive, Thrawn Guardian is recommended. Ragnarok is pretty rare. I don't know if you want to use it on a tank or you want to save it for your offensive flyers. Next we have recommended weapon for infantry class. First one we have Dragon Slayer Gram. This is the equivalent of Thrawn Guardian. So this is the sword version. And the next one you have Seal Guardian, like Ragnarok, but this one gives you extra defense plus 5% with no effect. Okay, looking at her kit, I think that her biggest weakness is to range attack, I should say. So I think Ayla's battle armor, if it procs, it's going to help her increase her survivability. Okay, mirror armor is also very good, especially if you're going to use Thorn as enchant. Remember her 3C as Lancer class, Lancer troops, Lancer class, whatever, the Lancer protection. So the more your opponent moves, the more counter damage they take. So let's say there's a flyer with mirror armor that it's going to break their last right, and there's a chance that you can counter kill. Okay, Bloodline Magic Armor. Basically, if you think you need more help when it comes to taking melee attacks, then use this. Honestly, I don't strongly recommend. I do recommend though, because her talent already has built in minus 25% damage taken when you have 2 buffs, and this one here is just going to make her like unkillable when it comes to melee attacks. But I think she's already very strong when it comes to taking melee attacks. Again, if you want her to be like definitely unkillable when it comes to melee range, I think Bloodline will do the work. Recommended helmet. 30th tier is really good. Increases her counter damage. Okay, next we have Aenis helmet. It's always a good choice when it comes to a tank. Increases a lot of HP and there's also defense. Gaia's helmet is also a very good choice. It increases her tankiness when it comes to against magic and physical. The downside is that the effect does not apply unless your HP is over 80%. Okay, recommend accessories. Overlord badge. I did say you probably can omit using Overlord badge because she doesn't get guard disable. Overlord badge gives base attack, and then the stats is all stats plus 5%, which is really good. You get defense, you get attack. And the effect immunity is really good aside from the mobility down reduction because everything will make her stay tankier. Okay, Wayne Shin Guard is also very good. Gives you attack, and when you're attacked, defense will also increase by 10%. If you do play PvP, Blood Pack is recommended. Pretty much is used for against SPL1, and with Blood Pack on, SPL1 might be a dead pick. But regardless, is a very good accessory since it gives you massive HP plus. Okay, one last thing before I go on. When it comes to these recommended gears, you're not entitled to use these gears. Aside from these gears, there's also a lot of good gears, but I think these ones are probably the best for them, and it's really situational. It depends how you want to build a character, and depends if you play PvE or you play both PvE and PvP. Okay, Enchant Choices. Full Moon is really good for PvE. PvP is a little bit hard because you need that HP above 80% to maintain that stats. Next we have Thorn. If you basically want to just take hits and hoping to do something more than just taking hits, Thorn is good because you have a chance to counter damage against ranged attacks. If you are going to use Thorn, I would recommend using Throng Guardian, Mirror Armor, and Blood Pack. Okay, lastly we have Steel. Steel is also a very nice option because it can stack on top of her talent. So instead of 25% damage decrease, it will be 35% at 6 stars. Now we are at our very last part of the video. So soldier choices, Crystal Mulder here. These troops are very good against magic and of course against cavalry. Phalanx, vice versa, very good against physical damage and of course very good against cavalry. She also have very strong cavalry troops, so Royal Cavalry very good against physical damage. And then Templar Knight we have is very good against magic. And do not forget that her 3C only transform herself, not the troops. So you still have to use different troops depending on the situation. Alright everyone, that is it for this video. I hope this video helps you understand better about Hilda and learn how to build her properly. Once again, if you like what you're watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.